There is hope, and you hear, the optimism kind of growing. The payroll protection program was an absolute lifesaver. We wouldn't have a business without those loans. There is hope, and you hear, the optimism kind of growing. The payroll protection program was an absolute lifesaver. We wouldn't have a business without those loans.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the State of the City conversation. We're here live and fully vaccinated from Bellevue City Hall in downtown Bellevue, Washington. I'm Patrick Bannon with the Bellevue Downtown Association, and for this May Downtown Talks episode, we're proud to present the State of the City conversation with the mayor and deputy mayor. What a year it's been. A year of many challenges, a year of loss in some cases, of change and perseverance and hope of things to come. Today we get to talk about what's going on in the city, as shared by two very special guests who know the subject very well. First, I'd like to thank our sponsors and supporters of the Downtown Talk series. They are Amazon, Heritage Bank, Kaiser Permanente, Puget Sound Energy, and Vulcan Real Estate. Thank you for building, serving, powering, and giving back to our community. For today's topics and questions, we went to our members and asked about important issues that are driving the change and are top of mind here in Bellevue. We're going to take on those questions, and the mayor and deputy mayor are ready to address those questions and key topics with facts, information, and a few new things along the way. I would like now to bring in our special guest for this Downtown Talks. Please join me from wherever you are out there in welcoming Mayor Lynn Robinson.
Thank you, Patrick. It's just a pleasure to be here, and thank you to everybody who's set this up today and give us an opportunity to speak with the community.
And Deputy Mayor Jared Neuenhaus.
Thank you, Patrick. Also great to be here today, and under slightly different circumstances. We're not ensconced in a bubble wrap, so this is feels like we're getting a little bit closer to normalcy, so it's wonderful, and thank everybody for joining us today, all the BDA members providing that input on the questionnaire that you did, so looking forward to a great conversation.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, it's been a year since we've been able to connect and get together, so this is a special opportunity. Before we get to the conversation, I invite you to watch a special State of the City highlight video produced by the city.
There is hope, and you hear, the optimism kind of growing. The payroll protection program was an absolute lifesaver. We wouldn't have a business without those loans.
Neighborhoods are important to the city. They're willing to invest in them, and that they're willing to listen to the people who live in the neighborhoods. And it's one of the many reasons why I'm very proud to call the city of Bellevue my home.
We've taken the whole family out here. It's very peaceful.
It's very pleasant, I guess, to be on because of the shade, and then it's like really soft sunlight, and then the areas where you can see all the way to the water is just really pretty.
Going from sleeping in the park for 3 months and then being here in that parking lot is a major accomplishment. I feel truly, truly blessed and happy that the city of Bellevue got me from the park through all of the city workers, about 4 agencies, and now I'm sitting here talking to you.
All done.
This is very exciting, and we're so grateful for the fire department to go around to these homes and deliver this, because otherwise we may sit in limbo for months without this.
It's good to get vaccinated, get everybody back to normal, keep the elders safer, the community is safer for us, get the kids back in schools and etc.
Okay, let's get started. Mayor Robinson, today marks the 1-year anniversary of the George Floyd murder. His death was another tragic reminder about prevailing injustices and the needs for healing and just really taking on change in our community. So a year later, what are your thoughts on this anniversary?
You know, that moment was such a catalyst for change for our country and the world. And it was certainly felt here in Bellevue. They say that nothing has changed the public opinion faster than watching that video in pollster history. And so suddenly we saw firsthand what so many people had been talking about, and nobody really, well, not enough people really understood the situation. And so there, you know, there's a need for change. And when Derek Chauvin, when the verdict was read, I did write a letter to the community, which was really, you know, a call to action to say that all the systems that we have in existence and all our future systems, we really need to make sure that we are listening to all the voices in our community and that those voices are at the decision-making table. Bellevue has taken a lot of much needed action. I mean, the first thing we did is we supported the rights to free speech in protecting our peaceful protesters as they demanded that Black Lives Matter. And many communities in the country started questioning their own police departments' policies on use of force, and Bellevue was no exception. And we responded by hiring an outside consultant to come in and review our policies on that. And fortunately, you know, we have a police chief who really embraced the results of that and those recommendations, which included using body cams, banning neck restraints, and what was the third one? Codifying de-escalation policies that we had already been using. So, you know, those are good changes. There are more recommendations. Our council advanced a Centering Communities of Color program, which was an initiative by Council Member Zahn in Barksdale that is budgeted and is currently being worked on with staff. It's a community-led program to advance racial equity, recognize and eliminate systemic barriers to civic participation, and build trust and awareness throughout our diverse population in Bellevue. And we are currently recruiting for a diverse group of 11 on our communities of color team. So if you want to apply for that, please do. The information is on the City of Bellevue website. And we continue with our programs for diversity, equity, inclusion. These are programs that we have been doing for a number of years, but we improve them every year. And we try to make sure we're hearing all the voices in our community, including our BIPOC and youth voices. And we just launched a Hate Has No Home Here campaign, and thank you to the BDA and the Chamber for promoting that and passing out signs and stickers for businesses and our community. And that was a reaction to the spate of violence against our AAPI community. So, you know, we all want you to know that the entire council, our chief of police, our staff, our city manager, we all stand in solidarity against any hate, bias, marginalization of the people who live, work, or visit our community.
And Deputy Mayor, as we take on these responsibilities over the past year, the pandemic certainly has been front and center for all of us.
Indeed.
And we're starting to see some change as we move through the vaccination period and hopefully bring more people back to our places of business, places to eat and enjoy life outdoors. What behaviors are shifting, and what are the near and long-term impacts for the city of Bellevue?
That's a great question, and it's interesting. We're starting to see that happen already. I think both short and long term, the individuals and the way they're responding in terms of reopening the economy a little bit more and getting out a little bit more. I think some people have embraced it immediately. Others are a little bit more hesitant, especially those that are in an age group or have pre-existing conditions. So they need to take further precautions. But I think that more and more people, as they get vaccinated, they're going to feel more comfortable going out for dinner, going to the park, being indoors, which is a big thing. Either to attend a concert or go see family somewhere else across the state. So it's really great to see that people are starting to get more comfortable, and it really all comes down to the vaccine, right? And anybody out there who hasn't gotten their vaccination yet, please do, and make sure the second shot as well, because we're seeing some softening in terms of people getting that first shot but then not getting that second shot, which is just as important. So we really need to make sure all residents do that, because the sooner that everyone's vaccinated, the better off we are, and the more we can open up this economy, as Governor Inslee said, by the end of June. And then you won't have to do this guessing game either anymore, right? Are you vaccinated, somewhat vaccinated, fully vaccinated? So I think everyone will feel a lot more comfortable just being out in public when we're at that point. But until then, we're certainly going to follow all the protocols by the Seattle and King County Department of Health and from the governor's office, and do everything in a responsible way. But personally, I think people are raring to go to get back to work, to get outside, to see people, to see their friends that they haven't seen in quite some time. So I'm very optimistic, and that optimism is not just from me. I hear it from people throughout, especially downtown Bellevue. If you go to like Claire, for example, who's the owner of the Belden Cafe, she is someone who has survived the pandemic because of residents going there, supporting her during this very difficult time, and she has said there's no other city I would want to be in than Bellevue, because of the way that we've handled this pandemic, but also the way that we have supported these small businesses and cafes and restaurants. And of course, it's a team effort. That's not just the city of Bellevue. That's great partners like the BDA and the Chamber, et cetera. But we certainly love to hear stories like that.
It certainly takes perseverance. And Mayor Robinson, on transitions, how is the city preparing for making the transition?
Yeah, I mean, the transitions are hard. I think the biggest transition, as the Deputy Mayor mentioned, is going to be the opening up, fully opening up and being prepared for that, having the businesses with all the information that they need to do that, and making sure the community is ready as well. The other transition we're going to be facing is when our businesses start having to pay business taxes again and their utility bills. And it's really important that if there's any businesses that are struggling, that they contact us, that we can work with them on that. And then the biggest impact, the biggest transition is going to be when we lose the eviction moratorium. Now, Bellevue did not put a moratorium in on their own. Of course, the state did, which we are following. But we have put all our energy and millions of dollars into rental assistance for our residents to try to make sure that we can get these people over the finish line. And we put millions of dollars into business assistance as well. And so those two efforts are just trying to maintain the community that we have and trying to make sure that at the end of the day, we don't lose any more businesses and we don't lose our residents, which we really value.
Growth came out as a really hot topic in our community and member poll, and it's visible signs of what's to come here in downtown with a lot of construction underway, but also certainly we're in a period of recovery. And the video mentioned the business assistance that came through at many different levels. So, Deputy Mayor, how is the city supporting recovery and preparing for what is a lot of growth on our horizon?
Well, despite the severe impacts of the pandemic, Bellevue remains very strong, Bellevue strong, if you will. And I think that the video that we showed here touched on a lot of the points, and some of them that I want to reiterate, because some of these data points are really important for people to understand exactly where we are. Like, for example, the unemployment rate is at 4.4%, quite good when you compare that to other cities of our size across the country or even regionally. So we're doing quite well there. Now, hotel occupancy is up over the last 12-month period. We're about 34%. Now, that might seem rather low, but it was much lower during the pandemic. So we are getting there, and there is growth there, so that's really great to see. And we've got 9 million square feet of office space, and 90% of it is already pre-leased. So, Bellevue is really poised to really take off, almost a V-shaped recovery. At least that's what we're hoping for, and what a lot of the economic indicators are pointing towards as well. And then in terms of, how we've helped businesses, it's quite dramatic in terms of everything we've done over the past year, as we tried to help as many businesses as possible, but maybe narrowing in specifically some of those businesses that were most impacted. So your small businesses, your restaurants, cafes, the arts, etc. They were more severely impacted, but there were over 6,000 Bellevue businesses that received close to $900 million in PPP loans. Tremendous. And Bellevue distributed over $600,000 in direct relief grants to 122 businesses and business support organizations. We just launched our Al Fresco outdoor dining program, as probably a lot of people have seen on Main Street, which was so fantastic, and a lot of people embrace that, and we see that as an ongoing program in the future. But not just for downtown, that'll be expanded elsewhere throughout Bellevue as well. And then we've Amazon, obviously, which has always receives a lot of attention, but they're bringing 25,000 jobs to Bellevue. Facebook invested close to $400 million in the Spring District, so they're very bullish on Bellevue as well. And our new economic development plan, which we just updated recently this year, the entire council updated that. And on that, going back to the focus areas, is really focused on tourism, the small businesses, the restaurants, the cafes, and the creative economy, which again has also been severely impacted by this pandemic, and that's of utmost concern to the entire council. So we really want to hone in onto that, as well as make sure that we bring the rest of the economic sector along as well. But our economic development team is just fantastic, and I would say anyone watching today, if they have any questions about either the reopening of the economy or there's anything else that we can do, please do reach out to our economic development team. They've got a ton of information, ton of data, and if they don't have it, they know where to get it and can point you in the right direction.
I think any conversation about growth obviously has housing attached to it, as we anticipate growth in jobs and there's increasing demand for quality of life here in Bellevue. The City Council has been stepping through a number of policy updates to address the challenges both on housing affordability and accessibility. So Mayor Robinson, share some highlights about the housing conversation here in Bellevue.
Thank you. That's my favorite topic. I could speak all day on that, but anything I don't cover, if anybody wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to go over the details. But I want to talk about the need and then some of the work that we're doing for solutions. There is a tremendous need for affordable housing in Bellevue. Currently, only 10% of our housing is affordable to a family of four earning $80,000 a year or less. So that's a lot of people who work in Bellevue that can't afford to live here. And in fact, only 10% of the people who work in Bellevue live in Bellevue. So you can imagine that incredible tidal shift of commuters that come in and out of Bellevue every day, and what a challenge that is. And it's not great for the environment, obviously. So we need to create that full spectrum of affordability, which would be like 0 to 120% area median income. And so the council, Jared and the council and I have been working really hard since we got into our positions to really advance affordable housing policies that are actually going to work. Just last night, we revamped our multifamily property tax exemption. That was a great compromise between our developers and our affordable housing advocates that as a package should really incentivize the development of more affordable housing within market rate housing. And so I'm excited, I think that in 2 years we will see a significant increase in housing being developed on all affordabilities. We've also, we voted at the beginning of the year, we voted to take the House Bill 1590 money, which is a sales tax that the county was going to collect anyway. And we voted unanimously to collect it on our own because we knew exactly what to do with that money. And we will, in the next few weeks, be hearing about how we're using that money to house some of our homeless school children and their family. And I'm really excited to move that forward. But that was a bold step. And that's going to generate, with bonding, about $8 million a year for Bellevue to create housing affordable at 60% area median income and below, and include supportive services for families who are getting back into housing out of homelessness and are trying to stay housed. We've also reduced minimum parking requirements in our transit-oriented development and high-frequency transit areas. We've changed the townhouse development zero lot line in multifamily zoned areas, and we've removed the time limitations for ADUs in new construction. And all of this has been a collaboration with the Chamber, with the BDA, with our affordable housing partners, and working with the community. And I'm very excited to see the results in the next 2 years of this work.
And as we see those strategies take hold and results come online, how do you define success? How will we know we're there on the housing issue?
Well, there's many ways to measure it, but personally, if I see 50% of the people working in downtown living in Bellevue, I will call that a success.
Part of the creation of success will depend on some land use and planning initiatives that are underway for the city. Really important to the downtown community, but of course important citywide, and those include the Grand Connection vision and implementation, Wilburton land use and zoning, as well as East Main. So share with us a little bit more about those key planning initiatives that are future-focused and taking up a lot of time for both staff and council.
Well, as everybody knows, we're about to experience significant growth, and we're obviously preparing for that already. But unlike most cities, we have room for this growth. Our downtown is only 70% built out. We have these other growth areas where we can focus the growth in the Bel Red, in Wilburton, Eastgate, Factoria. So, it's these different areas are going to have unique characters that will be designed by the people who live and work there. And there's a big planning process going on right now, and I'm really excited to see how they emerge. But the challenge, I think, is how do we connect all these areas, not only to each other, but to the community as well? And that's where the Grand Connection comes in. And the Grand Connection is a pedestrian pathway that will originate at Maidenbower Bay Beach Park and come up along 100th, enter the downtown Bellevue Park, go through that beautiful new northeast entrance that is going to be finished at the end of this month, cross over to the Bellevue Art Museum, go along the pedestrian promenade along 6th Street all the way up to the Transit Center, to City Hall, and eventually across 405 with hopefully a lit park to connect to the old train tracks, which is now East Trail. And now East Trail is a ped bike path that extends all the way from Renton through Bellevue up to Kirkland, Redmond, and eventually Woodinville. And that connects to the Mountains to Sound Greenway, which is an amazing east-west dedicated ped bike path. So all this interconnectivity is just an amazing amenity for the people who live and work and visit Bellevue. And there will be little spurs along along the East Trail that will connect to our neighborhoods as well. So you think about people who work here stepping out and this experience that to me is going to kind of feel like the Bellevue Arts and Crafts Fair every day, because there'll be music, there'll be food, there'll be art, there'll be greenery. It's going to be a wonderful experience. And we're already, frankly, Patrick, the BDA has done a beautiful job of activating the Grand Connection over the last few years with the golden lanterns and the cafe tables. And I know you have plans to do more of that this year. But our large employers who are situated along the Grand Connection are already making plans to contribute to it. I know Amazon is creating an indoor atrium. We have other developers that are putting in covered walkways. And it's going to be really fun to develop more private-public partnerships to really make this a wonderful thing for everybody in Bellevue.
A lot to look forward to.
I think so.
And as we make our way into the future, return to the workplace is really topical and front and center. And we know so much of our workforce has been on the front lines working from day one of the pandemic, but many of us have been working remotely or adapting to a hybrid style. So return to the workplace is really important for our economy, especially our downtown economy. So Deputy Mayor, share with us a little more about the return to workplace challenges and opportunities that you see.
Yeah, great question, Patrick. I mean, I think, first of all, shout out again to all of those essential workers during the pandemic. I mean, the police, firefighters, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks, you name it. They deserve a lot of credit for helping us get through. We're not quite there yet, but we're close. But they deserve a lot of credit, and just want to give them a quick shout out. But, I think the way businesses, get back into that rhythm is going to be as varied as our economy is, as varied as the number of businesses here. I think there were certainly a number of lessons learned, but for me, what I keep hearing constantly is the fact that working from home does have some benefits, and we can be more flexible in our work schedules, or where we tend to work. Be it at home, be it at a conference room, be at City Hall, wherever that might be. So I think there will be some long-term changes, but it really depends on the company, on the industry that they're in. We had discussed earlier about the tech industry having an easier time to pivot to an all virtual model versus other businesses, or like myself in the video game industry, we're able to pivot a little bit easier. But other companies, due either to their industry or to their culture, they want everybody back in the office as quickly as possible. For example, like Microsoft and T-Mobile, my understanding is that they're going to be all back in the office by September. But again, until that time, they're probably going to be in a hybrid model, which I think is good, and actually will have some other impacts, positive impacts for the city as well, as the mayor mentioned regarding transportation, for example. If someone is only going into the office 2 or 3 times a week versus 5 days a week, that's another car that's off the road that might ease up congestion a little bit. Now, in terms of city, and again, I got to really congratulate City Manager Miyake and the entire leadership team for doing such a great job of pivoting during the pandemic and going to an all virtual environment, and at the same time maintaining incredibly high level of services. So I was just amazed at how quickly we were able to do that. Of course, there were some bumps in the roads along the way, but it was just amazing. And I know City Manager Miyake has a team of HR, IT, legal, facilities, etc. They're meeting on a weekly basis, constantly looking at the guidance coming down from the state and King County Health, and putting plans together to eventually fully reopen all city facilities like City Hall. So that'll be great when that happens. But we're taking a measured approach to it. We're being responsible, but certainly that is the goal, to open sooner than later. But overall, I think when staff gets back and everyone feels safe, that's when we'll be fully able to go and firing off all cylinders.
Yeah, no question. This past year has been really hard too, as we learned a lot of lessons about how to relate and work with one another, how we engage in the community and support one another. Mayor Robinson, this pandemic, it's triggered a lot of issues, from economic losses, mental health impacts, child care problems, a lot of scrambling to figure out how to respond and be resilient. So what challenges from the past year and then looking forward are top of mind for you?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is going to be working with the families and the businesses that were struggling before COVID. I mean, this has just exacerbated any challenges that people were having in advance of COVID. And it's going to be really, I mean, fortunately, we live in a city that has poured every extra penny it has into human services, into small business support. And our large employers have joined us in doing that. So we're just trying to keep people afloat to the end here and really hoping that we don't lose families when that moratorium ends and that we don't lose any more small businesses. I think we've lost over 400 of our small businesses. So, you know, maybe we can bring them back. I don't know, but we're just trying to help people hang in there until everybody can open up again and people can go back to work and the schools are fully opened, and it is truly a great challenge. But I have to say, I am so proud of the council that we have, of the people, the deputy mayor and the rest of the council members. We're all very different. We all have different passions and expertise, but we function well together. And I feel like we have been working so hard during this time and have made good decisions. Really impressed with our city manager and our staff. If any city can make it through this and come out on top, it will be Bellevue.
And why is that? What's kind of the secret into making it all work?
Well, obviously, it's the people who live here because they're the ones who elect us. And they're the ones who really weigh in on the decisions that get made. So I think it's the community that is here in Bellevue, the community that Bellevue attracts. And to me, the heart and soul of our community is small business. And so just creating that character and the diversity that is so prevalent here and so fun because you see it in the restaurants and the arts and in the celebrations that we have, and just every day in Bellevue is a wonderful day because there's so many different kinds of people here. So I can't wait to get back to seeing each other again out on the streets and in events, but we've got a little ways to go yet, and we got to get there.
You mentioned getting back and streets, and that segues nicely into a question about transportation and mobility. We spend a lot of time talking about transportation, infrastructure, transit service, transportation demand management. It is an all-in effort to address mobility and the growth that's on our horizon.
Indeed.
So, Deputy Mayor, I think it would be helpful for our audience to understand from the council's perspective, what are those key transportation priorities and projects that we're working on?
Yeah, and it's a key area where everyone's interested in, especially with all the growth and getting back to work. And it's amazing how many projects have been ongoing, and the fact that we've been able to keep those projects on track despite the pandemic. And I even have to refer to my notes here because I couldn't believe when I was asking to make sure that I cover off on all these transportation projects. It was much more extensive than I anticipated. So first of all, let's start with Eastlink. So that is close to now 95% complete. So I think we can safely say at this point that barring some unforeseen circumstances, that's going to open up in 2023. Interesting fact, they do about a year's worth of testing before they actually open that. So while everything will appear that it's complete and ready to go, that testing is obviously very important. So they do almost up to a year of testing, but I think they're on schedule for that. So that's going to be fantastic. And certainly, transit's very important as well, obviously. The transit routes are still not back to they were pre-pandemic levels. So there's some work to be done there because we certainly want people to feel safe when they're taking the bus to work or to school or what have you. So currently the guidance that we're getting from King County is that those bus routes will be back up to or close to back up to full operational and all their different routes by September. So that would be great to see. But again, I think we need to do some further education there in terms terms of the right protocols to be on a bus. And then we've got the Transportation Demand Management Program that the city also works with employers and employees and property managers, residents, schools, et cetera, and visitors to reduce vehicle trips by promoting carpooling or promoting van pooling, transit, bikes, walking, whatever mode of transportation we can think of, because at the end of the day, we want to give as many possible options to people that are commuting in and out of the city of Bellevue. It's really, really important. So if there is an option that's not on the table, we are open to that. So, but we want to give as many options as possible. Now, on the neighborhoods congestion and transportation, there was a levy back in 2016, the Neighborhood Safety, Connectivity, and Congestion Levy. And with that, we invested more than $21 million and completed 51 different projects citywide that upgraded bike lanes, sidewalks, crosswalk safety improvements, congestion relief, or cut-through traffic issues, and then some technology as well for traffic management projects. And speaking of safety, one of the most important things that this council has done was passing the Vision Zero program. Obviously, that is of utmost concern to us, and by 2030, we want to make a significant impact, or hopefully get to that zero of no fatalities, no serious accidents. But as I was doing some research for this event today, it's interesting to note that 83% of all the fatalities and serious accidents are only happening on 8% of our streets. So bottom line, we know where these trouble areas are, and we're working very quickly to address them, because it's not the same everywhere across the city. It's really some few specific areas that are causing a lot of these issues, and we're going to get them addressed and get them addressed quickly. The council also allocated $2.5 million to the current capital budget for safety improvements on 5 different city streets, and that's going forward very quickly. And again, meeting that growth challenge is really important, and the anticipated growth that we talked about earlier as well. So we're going to be and have extended capacity, roadway capacity, especially along those different growth corridors, be it downtown, Spring District, Wilburton, Bell Red. So as much as possible, we've expanded capacity on those existing roadways to better connect downtown with those different neighborhoods. And we also received, which I think has gotten a lot of attention, the $100 million TIFIA loan, which was basically 2 projects that will start this year, and it's a $100 million loan, and that is for 124th Avenue Northeast, from Northeast 12th to 12th Streets, and then the next section of the Spring Boulevard. And previously, projects completed there were another section of the Spring Boulevard, along with 124th Avenue Northeast and 120th Avenue Northeast. So there's been a lot of work done already, but the work continues. And by the way, we've already won a couple of engineering awards for some of that work in the Spring District. So that's really great to see as well. So it's not only quick work, but it's quality work. So, and then our pedestrian and bicycle system, something that's very important to both the mayor and I as avid cyclists. Very proud of the work that we've done there. And again, as I mentioned earlier about giving options, right? People aren't going to only get on a bike if they feel comfortable on that bike or walking on that sidewalk. So we've added 28 miles of new bike lanes since 2017 for a total of 72 miles now throughout the city of Bellevue. I think that's a major accomplishment. And this year we also completed the 108th Complete Street program and Northeast 12th Street multi-purpose path project. And those 2 projects connect each other to the new multi-purpose path on Northeast Spring Boulevard as well. And that provides a really safe, comfortable bicycle connection from downtown to Bell Red and connecting to the East Rail that the mayor mentioned earlier as well. And speaking of East Rail, so that 2.5 mile section of the trail south of Coal Creek Parkway was recently paved. So shout out to WashDOT and King County Parks for their help with that. And Bellevue just recently completed a new section of the Mountains to Sound Greenway Trail along I-90 that goes above Factoria Boulevard, which which is just amazing completed project, and have rode over a couple of times now. And it's a major safety improvement, because previously people would literally have to get into that very, very crowded, busy intersection. So that's a significant improvement right there as well. So now regional roadways, obviously there's 3 major highways that impact Bellevue, so obviously something that's very top of mind for us. And WashDOT has completed 405 improvement projects worth hundreds of millions of dollars. We're collaborating with WashDOT on that I-405 program that you're probably familiar with. That is the widening of the 405 as well as the express toll lanes. So that's obviously a very important project. And then the I-90 Eastgate to SR 900 corridor improvements there, and then the proposed improvements on 124th, and the 520 interchange there. So that's another one. And it's also worth noting that in 2020, Bellevue was awarded over, close to $10 million in local, state, and federal grant funds for transportation projects. So despite all of our challenges, despite being in a pandemic, a lot of this work continued and will continue, and we will keep advocating for more transportation dollars to further as many transportation options that we can in the city of Bellevue.
Yeah, we stay with that challenge for sure. And I think importantly, as you reminded us with the list of projects, we talk a lot about the regional projects of significance, those that are going to make the greatest impact and serve growth downtown and Spring District and other areas where we've designated growth. But the investments are citywide. They really are designed to impact and serve neighborhoods throughout the city, which I think is an important point for mobility as we take on the challenges. That
absolutely
talk about the big regional projects, but those smaller projects have a really significant impact for the residents of Bellevue.
Absolutely right, Pat. And that's why I wanted to mention the neighborhood levy, because that's just as important as any other part of the city, right? So we don't just focus on the big ones. We want to focus on the small ones too, because they're just as impacted to congestion or other issues in their neighborhood.
That levy also pays for safe routes to school.
That's right. Good point.
Yeah, it is a pleasure and a privilege to do work alongside the city of Bellevue in many areas, and to pursue advocacy on key issues, in part because the city's been so focused in being a high-performing organization and working with council that is constantly reevaluating priorities and what it should focus on from a policy standpoint. So I understand the City Council recently went through a relook at council priorities, and so now would be a great opportunity to share with the audience what's new or different, or what would you like to highlight from this year's work on the council priorities?
Well, we had 2 new council members. One new, and then you and Janice, I guess, at the same time came on. So 3 new council members. It was really the first time we'd all been able to sit down and re-examine our long-term goals for the city and what our priorities were. And the thing that came out that permeated the entire conversation and all our guiding principles was the equity and the inclusion part of it, and not just that we welcome people, that people feel they belong. Everything that we do should make anybody who comes into Bellevue feel comfortable here, that they belong here, and that there's something for them here. So that permeated all the work that we did. But we did add a few new principles. Do you want to go ahead and?
No, please, Mayor.
Well, we talked about one thing that's kind of exciting that Councilmember Lee has been talking about is a cross-cultural center of sorts. And so we've put that out to a consultant to look at, do we build a new building? Do we use an existing place that we have for that to support those programmings? But it's really interesting how much support we've gotten from the community. There are so many people who are excited about the idea of this and want to be involved. There's a lot more emphasis on art. There's a big separation between culture and our arts. Of course, they're interconnected, but I really like the delineation between those two, so we can focus on each of them independently as well as together. Much more inclusion with the environment, making that a real priority for the work that we're doing, making sure that, and you can see it happening. Look at all the trees we're planting in Bellevue. We're really trying to replace that tree canopy and work on reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. Obviously, you know, all the equity work that we're doing, we're going to continue to advance that. What am I missing?
No, I think that's an interesting and an important piece to it is that the document as a whole, both the vision and the priorities, we're putting an equity lens on it. And previously we had not done that. So it's not just, you know, one line item or one bullet point about equity, but the entire principles that we're looking at, we do have that equity lens. And I think that's one of the major updates this time around.
That, and also, surprisingly, we had not really called out affordable housing before as a priority. And obviously, that needs to be a priority. And also, multimodal transportation. It's not to say we don't support cars. We don't want to make it easy for people to drive around Bellevue. That's essential. But the more people that are able to safely get out of their cars and walk, bike, use transit, use light rail, the fewer cars we'll have downtown. And hopefully the more people that can live near where they work, the fewer cars we'll have on the roads. And that'll make it easier for the people who do drive.
Yeah, there's a balancing effect over time when you have more options. That's great to hear. Anything else on priorities before we move on? I know it's a big undertaking for the council when it happens.
It was a huge undertaking.
It was.
That's what's coming to my mind right now.
Great. So I know public safety continues to be a significant priority for the city, given the events of the last year, and also looking forward how we grow and how we prepare for the future. So Deputy Mayor, can you talk about some of the focus areas for the city right now on public safety?
Oh, certainly. Well, first of all, I mean, we're so blessed to have such a fantastic police department here representing us in the city of Bellevue. They do such a fine job and adhere to the highest standards. They were just recently reaccredited with an organization called CELIA, which, after doing some research, found out that less than 6% of all the police departments around the country are accredited, which just blew me away. But it also made sense in terms of why our police department is so well run and why they are so admired. And it's just such a pleasure to live in a city that has such a well-functioning police department. So with that said, you know, Chief Milet has been doing a lot of great work. Recently, he just hired a new assistant chief, Wendell Shirley, out of Santa Monica. A great hire. But speaking of hires, we're actually down about 13, 15 officers right now. So I know that's a priority for him. So we've kind of reinstituted a signing bonus program for $16,000 to attract lateral hires, not only regionally but nationally. Previously, that worked quite well for us in the past, but I'm sure we'll get a lot of interest again once from that. But you know, being down 13 or 15 officers might not sound like much, but a department of our size actually has a pretty significant impact when you're talking about 180, 200 officers. So it can have quite a bit of impact. So hoping to shore that up right away. But you know, I think what's also going to attract people to the city of Bellevue is that, or officers or lateral hires or new hires to the city of Bellevue, is that this council supports our police department. Residents support this police department, and that, you know, that may sound like, of course they do, but you know, we truly do. And that's not to say that we don't constantly reevaluate policies and procedures, as we talked about earlier about the use of force, which we went through that. But you know, they have a constant program in place too to keep reevaluating. How do we get better? What do we need to change, et cetera, et cetera. And that's going to happen over and over and over again, because if you're not doing that, if you're standing still, if you're not moving forward and constantly reevaluating your programs, that's when, you know, things can go wrong. So I'm sure that will continue in the future as well.
And I think that being a police officer has got to be one of the hardest jobs to have. And, you know, to protect people's safety and at the same time have to do a SWOT analysis of what's going on and try to use the right response that at the end of the day, everybody gets home safely. It's tough. And to be honest, not everybody in our community, whether it be here or anywhere else, has had positive experiences with police. And so the encounters they may have are not easy for them. And we really have to take account who we're working with, what we're working with, and what are the tools that we can use. And I think that there's a big effort to increase the tool bags that police officers have so that they can recognize, first of all, whether it's by training or by hiring people who can recognize when this is maybe not a physical danger moment, but this is a mental health crisis. And who do we bring in at that moment that is most effective for the person to keep them safe and the people around them safe? And so we're re-examining how best to deal with that. I know that the Bellevue School District decided to temporarily remove the SRO officers, but really it's an opportunity to re-examine what that role is in our schools, how we can partner with our police and our school district, if that's what we choose to do again, and to be most effective for the children that are there, that they're getting the support they need and that they feel safe.
Patrick, if I can add on to that, I was just going to say that, as a minority-majority city, that cultural competency is so critical. When an officer might pull over someone, you have no idea, maybe they've just immigrated from China or Russia or some other part of the world where, again, their interaction with police wasn't as positive as it may have been here for someone. So, and again, that leads to that de-escalation training and a lot of this other training that the police department is constantly doing. So just wanted to underscore that. But I think that's always very top of mind, and why Chief Milet, one of the first things that he did when he came to the city of Bellevue was establish advisory groups that represent the entire city. LGBTQI, African American, Muslim, you name it. Every group that you can think of
we have about 12.
Yeah, correct. It's about 12. Has direct input, has a voice in terms of what's happening within the Bellevue Police Department. And I think that's worked very well for both sides. They can understand better what the Bellevue Police Department is trying to achieve, and we, meaning the Bellevue Police Department, can better understand some of the issues that they're currently dealing with in that particular community, whichever one it might be.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, thank you for your leadership and collaboration and for serving the entire community. That makes a huge difference. Before we wrap, I would like to give you both an opportunity to share a parting thought, closing words of wisdom for our audience. And you have your choice. Who starts?
Well,
I always defer to the mayor, so.
Oh, well, I don't know if this is words of wisdom, but I just want to commend this community, this city, all the organizations here. COVID's been tough, obviously. This city has never slept. It has not just sat down and watched what's going to happen. It has been proactive from day one. Patrick, you, the BDA, worked so hard with these businesses to make sure they had the equipment they needed, the advice they needed. You continue to work with them. You put in programs around the city to bring joy, the little light display at the downtown park. I've never seen so many people going around in circles at the park. There were so many people, they actually made treads in the gravel that we now repairing. But I mean, it was just such a beautiful respite that you organized there, and the BDA continues to do that in many other ways with the music programming and the activation of the Grand Connection and helping the alfresco work that you're doing. I mean, our economic development team has worked so hard. Our human service team has worked so hard. Our emergency response crews and neighbors helping neighbors. I've seen us all come together, and we have carried each other through this. And I'm just really proud.
Deputy Mayor?
Well, I'm not sure words of wisdom, but I really thank the mayor and the entire council for the leadership over the past year and a half. It has been hard. There's been a lot, but we are about through it, and very bullish on Bellevue, and we will emerge from this stronger than ever. But I did want to highlight just the importance of partnerships to this city as well. We can't do it alone. And the mayor mentioned a couple of examples, like the MFTE program, working with both developers and affordable housing providers. But there are so many examples throughout the city. Being the liaison to the Human Services Commission, we work with so many great partners through COVID to get the services and get the needs out there that we couldn't do by ourselves. Working with great organizations, be it HopeLink or LifeWire, to address food insecurity or shelter or domestic violence. These are all very successful partnerships that I don't really think get as enough recognition as they should, because without those partnerships, there's no way we could do it alone. And I thank all those partners, and I encourage anyone who does want to get more involved, any other partners that wants to come to the city of Bellevue and say, how can I help? Please do. We are always open to that. So I'll leave it with that. But thank you, Patrick, for having us again. It's been a pleasure being here and in person this time, or somewhat, much different than the first time.
Well, thank you, Team Council. Thank you, Team Bellevue. Thank you, BDA team, for a year of challenging and learning and continuing to partner and work together on the future of Bellevue. And I'd like to thank the supporters and sponsors again of Downtown Talks. Just continue to be generous in supporting our programming, and they are Amazon, Heritage Bank, Kaiser Permanente, Puget Sound Energy, and Vulcan Real Estate. And to everyone watching, no matter where you are, I invite you to get engaged and participate in your neighborhood association. Partnership doesn't have to be a formal partnership. It can be an unofficial partnership of just engaging with your fellow neighbors and with the city. A lot of open doors to get involved. Join the chamber, join the BDA, join your neighborhood association. Thank you for watching.
Stay strong.